Hi, y'all. This is Gabriela. This week, we are looking into inclusion as method, and in this case, I will be focusing on the exhibition and the catalog Radical Women Latin American Art 1960 to 1985. This project brought together 123 women artists from different countries, all focused around bringing forward a vast body of work that has heavily influenced contemporary Latin American art. Due to the lack of scholarly work, this project took over 7 years to come to fruition. However, at its conception, the exhibition is considered by many to be one of the most important contributions to the field of contemporary feminist art, in particular contemporary Latin American art. The conceptual focus of this exhibition centered around the political body and its various intersections with the different social and historical contexts it is grounded in. The curators also noted that even though a lot of these artists do not consider themselves feminists, thus not producing feminist-esque art, the values and symbols in their work match a feminist agenda. This exhibition was curated by Cecilia Fajardo Gil and Andrea Giunta, with the help of collaboration of various institutions, peers, artists, and scholars. Cecilia Fajardo Gil is a British Venezuelan historian and curator of modern contemporary art, specializing in Latin American art. She holds a PhD in art history from the University of Essex and an MA in 20th century art history from the Cortland Institute of Art in London, England. She was the chief curator and vice president of curatorial affairs at the Museum of Latin American Art, the director and chief curator of the Cisneros Fontanos Art Foundation and the Cisneros Collection in Miami, and the director of Sala Mendoza in Caracas, Venezuela. Fajardo Gil is the curator of Radical Women Latin American Art 1960 to 1985 in the Hammer Museum. She is also the curator of Abstraction and Action, a multi-platform project on post-90s abstraction in Latin America. And presently, she is co-editor of a publication on 20th and 21st century Guatemalan art, an initiative of Harvard University and RTGT. Andrea Giuntia is an art historian and curator specialized in Latin American contemporary art. She received her PhD from the Universidad de Buenos Aires in Argentina, where she is professor of Latin American art at the Facultad de Filosofía y Letras. She is also a principal researcher of the CONICET, National Research Council in Argentina. She held a chair in Latin American art history and criticism at the University of Texas at Austin, where she was also the founding director of the Center of Latin American Visual Studies. She was curator of the retrospective exhibition on Leon Ferrari's work, co-curator of Verbo America, permanent collection of Latin American art at Malva, and co-curator of Radical Women. Giunta is a recipient of several awards, including the Guggenheim, the Getting Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation Fellowship. She was distinguished with the Donald D. Harrington Faculty Fellowship, University of Texas at Austin. In 2017, Radical Women had its first conception at the Hammer Museum in California. Later on, in 2018, it was presented at the Brooklyn Museum in New York and the Pinacoteca de Sao Paulo in Brazil. The exhibition includes more than 260 works, including photography, video, and other experimental mediums, as well as paintings, sculptures, and prints by more than 120 artists working in 15 countries. Here, you can get the overall idea of all the artists that form part of this collection. I have made this document available in the Google Drive if you wish to take a closer look. The artists pioneer radical forms and explore a female sensitivity with overt or more often covert links to feminist activism. Many works were realized under harsh political and social conditions, some due to US interventions in Central and South America, that were complicated or compounded by the artists' experiences as women. Additionally, the exhibition opens itself up to other forms of analysis and theoretical frameworks. In 2019, while at Princeton University, Andrea Giunta gave a talk about the exhibition, titled Radical Women: An Intersectional Without Separability Perspective. She spoke about the role of race in some of the artworks presented and how, since its conception, the exhibition has grown to be part of a bigger discourse about the intersectionality of race and feminism. And I quote, "Radical women subverted the dominant patriarchal perspective on the art of this period from a feminine and feminist perspective. Although we do not conceptualize it from an intersectional approach, Issues of race and sexual dissidence can be analyzed in different works of the exhibition. Many of them can be understood from a critical position towards the parameters of the regimented societies of Latin America, whose normative ideal was white and heterosexual. These were societies in which women who, in 1960, had recently won the right to vote were also subject to repression, censorship, imprisonment, and torture that affected all citizens. For this lecture, I chose 3 artworks that present some of the themes touched upon both in the overall exhibition and the specific essays we read for class. The first one is from Sonia Gutierrez, and it's titled Y con unos lazos me izaron. In the 1970s, Sonia Gutierrez took an overtly political stance that culminated in her sudden exile from Colombia's art scene. Her paintings and prints from the 1970s and the early 1980s denounce acts of torture and persecution while retaining her pop art aesthetic. The second one is by Celia Sanchez, and it's titled Lunar Cinco. After having moved to Puerto Rico in 1972, Celia Sanchez began a series of paintings in which she applied the formal language of abstraction to representations of the female body, lending itself to reading between female and celestial bodies. And the last one is by Victoria Santa Cruz, Me Gritaron Negra. This recording of a poetry performance by activist, choreographer, and composer Victoria Santa Cruz follows her own girlhood experience of racial discrimination and later embracing of her Blackness as a source of pride. The performance addresses Black experience in South America, which is often denied and devalued by dominant cultures and regimes, despite long histories of Afro-Latino traditions throughout the region, in this case, in Peru. And now we're going to have a chance to look at the recording.
Tenía 7 años apenas 7 años. ¿Qué 7 años? No llegaba a 5 siquiera. De pronto unas voces en la calle me gritaron, ¡negra! 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 ¿Soy acaso negra? Me dije. ¡Sí! ¿Qué cosa es ser negra? ¡Negra! Yo no sabía la triste verdad que aquello escondía. ¡Negra! Y me sentí negra. ¡Negra! Como ellos decían. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Como ellos querían. ¡Negra! Yo odié mis cabellos y mis labios gruesos y miré apenada mi carne tostada y retrocedí. ¡Negra! Y retrocedí. ¡Negra! 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 Y pasaba el tiempo y siempre amargada seguía llevando a mi espalda mi pesada carga. ¡Y cómo pesaba! Me alací el cabello, me polvé la cara, y entre mis entrañas siempre resonaba la misma palabra. ¡Negra! 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 Hasta que un día que retrocedía y que iba a caer. ¡Negra! 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 ¿Qué? ¿Y qué? ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra! ¡Soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! ¡Negra! ¡Sí! ¡Negra! ¡Soy! ¡Negra! ¡Negra soy! Yo y en adelante no quiero laciar mi cabello. ¡No quiero! Y voy a reírme de aquellos que por evitar, según ellos, que por evitarnos algún sinsabor llaman a los negros gente de color. ¿Y de qué color? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué lindo suena? ¡Negro! ¿Y qué ritmo tiene? ¡Negro, negro, 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 negro! Al fin comprendí. ¡Al fin! Ya no retrocedo. ¡Al fin! Y avanzo segura. ¡Al fin! Avanzo y espero. ¡Al fin! Y bendigo al cielo porque quito Dios que